I am so excited today. I am here with Anja from Our Gabled Homes, and she is somebody that I've actually known for a few years in the blog group that I have been in. And we actually did a collab, like ebook, a few years ago,
Great.
but we have never actually spoken in person. So it's been fun kind of chatting and getting to know her the last few minutes before this podcast had started. But we have such a similar heart of wanting to teach the next generation based on the things that we grew up with. So I'm going to let Anna give her a little introduction of who she is. And this video is going to end up being on both of our YouTube channels. So you'll get to mix and mingle with both of us.
Yeah. Hey, Amy, this is so fun. I can't believe how much I love these real life. I mean, like we're still connected through some screen, but at least in sync, and we're talking, and this is super fun. I mean, you were all over the place on social media, so it's hard not to see you and your strawberries in a jar, which I hope we will talk about a lot because I think that's what got you here and got you to where you are. And yeah, so I'm Anja from Our Gabled Home, and I have the blog and the YouTube channel and all the social media, same handle. And yeah, I grew up in Germany, born and raised. Some days I have more of an accent than others. My grandparents were super influential in their ways, and it wasn't really known to me at the time, but they were pretty self-sustaining and they were probably organic. And they had a huge garden where they grew vegetables and fruits and all sorts of herbs before organic was even a word. So that was in the 70s and 80s in Germany. And because they had lived through two wars, they needed to be frugal. They couldn't afford to throw anything out, and they were super frugal, partly out of necessity and partly because that was you just couldn't do it any other way. And when I came to this country, partly because I was missing German food, but I've always been interested in DIY and making stuff myself. And when I go to the store and I see beeswax wraps for $20, like 2 or 3 little ones, I turn the whole thing over and I'm like, oh, beeswax, pine rosin, and jojoba oil. I bet I can make those myself. And I did, and it worked. And so that's how I grew my blog, because then I wanted to teach other people. I found another blogger and she was doing that. And I was thinking, oh, she's doing all the things that I'm doing, except for she's writing and showing people on YouTube what she's doing. And then I did that, and that started me. And yeah, and so that's my background.
It's kind of fun since we were like in that blog group together, but I actually knew you before then on YouTube because you inspired our kitchen. My
Oh,
husband did our entire kitchen remodel, and it is white on white on white. And when we were working with the kitchen designer, well, I designed everything, but we were working with the person that we were picking out the cabinets with. He was like, "No, you don't want white. You don't want white on white." And I'm like, "No, look at this YouTube channel. Like, I want white on white on white, and the glass cabinets, like all the things." So
oh,
it's kind
that's
of
so
fun.
fun.
And that was before I even started YouTube. So I
Oh my
actually
gosh.
made this random studio that we didn't even know that like YouTube and Instagram and all those things were going to be in our future. But
Yeah.
it was
Oh
from
my
your
gosh, that's so
kitchen
fun to
that,
know. That's so fun. I never knew this about you. Yeah. I mean, we
yeah.
designed this kitchen kind of because we wanted it to feel like it could have always been in this 1910 home. But if you ever have lived in an old house, you know, there's no straight walls and no 90-degree angles. So my husband had to do a lot of work to convince straight cabinets to go into not straight corners.
Yeah, my husband did all of this too over the pandemic,
Amazing.
and like he's never
Yeah.
remodeled a kitchen or remodeled anything. So it's all everything that you learn on YouTube. But
Yeah. Right?
so that's kind of fun that we did it. But a little bit of my background, I grew up on a 200-acre farm, and it's a fifth generational farm here local to where we live now in the Seattle area. So I've never really moved away besides for 3 years during college. And so I've always been in this area. And we're actually listing our house to sell to move for the first time, like ever in our life, closer to family on the other side of our state, which will have a warmer climate and not rainy and drizzly, and which will be really nice. I'm excited about some of the things that we can grow over there that we can't grow here. My big thing is I help families save money on groceries by reducing their food waste. So I have tips and tricks for every single produce item to get them to last for weeks. And then you don't waste the produce that you're buying, because the average family throws away over 40 to 60% of the food that they buy. So,
and I think even before produce ever hits the stores, I think there's a lot of waste. I heard something more like 60-70% of all produce grown is wasted, either because it doesn't look great, but then once it hits the kitchens, yeah, people don't store it properly, and then it goes bad, and then you throw it out, and it's sad. Yeah.
So one of the videos that I was watching of yours just yesterday was your cabbage roll video, which just brought me back so many fond memories of my grandma making cabbage rolls. She had 8 kids, and that was like something that she made all of the time. And I thought it was kind of interesting that we make them totally different than how you make them. And so I want to try some of the ways that you were making them, because we don't brown them in the pan.
Yeah, tell me quickly how you make them, because
Yeah.
when I do things, I always think like that's how everybody does it, but apparently not. So I'd love to hear how you make them.
Yeah, so I want to try browning them in a pan. And next time, the way that you did it in your video, we'll make sure to link that in the description too, if you want to check out the cabbage roll video.
I'll link yours so that people can compare them. And I mean, this is not a competition, but
No, it's just fun. Yeah, it's just fun to see like recipes that we grew up with. But we bake them. So, and then I do huge batches at one time. So normally in the fall when the cabbages are coming in. And so we bake them with like a marinara sauce, not a broth.
Right.
So it's different, but like the making the cabbage rolls and like everything that you put in it, it was like so similar to like what I would do. But I batch cook them, and then I put them in the freezer. So then I pull them back out like all winter long. So it was just kind of fun seeing like a different recipe of the same thing, but it just brought me back to thinking about my grandma too, which was neat.
Yeah, and that's one way to basically preserve, I mean, in quotation mark, preserve the cabbage, because now it's in a cabbage roll and you can eat cabbage all winter long without having to, I don't know, do something else with it. The main thing for cabbage, excuse me, and I actually do have 2 jars somewhere because I'm teaching a fermentation class this weekend, is fermenting your cabbage into sauerkraut. I mean, that's a traditional way that people have done it all over the world, and especially in Germany. And it's kind of fun to think that they used to stomp the sauerkraut the cabbage with their feet. So I'm always thinking when people are like super, I mean, I'm not promoting unsanitary practices, but especially when it comes to fermentation, I'm always aware of the fact that the good bacteria like to outcrowd the bad bacteria and whatever else is on your feet you don't want to know. But it can't be bad for humans, otherwise I would have aborted that practice.
Yeah, well, wine too. They used to do it that way, but yeah, my grandma used to make it in the big, huge crocks every year to preserve it. So I just do it in quart jars, and it's in my refrigerator now. It's just kind of fun. And then another video I was watching that I thought was really interesting is I've never seen white asparagus before. And you were talking about how that's like more common in Germany. And we have white, or here in Washington, we also have purple asparagus.
Yeah. You do see the purple asparagus, but I don't know if you watched that part of the video, but Germans actually have a 5th season, and that's the asparagus season, because everybody goes crazy over white asparagus. It grows in Germany. And the reason it's white is because typical asparagus just comes out of the ground and then the chlorophyll turns it green. But the white asparagus, you pile the dirt, the soil back on, so it stays underground and never sees the sunlight, and it keeps on growing and growing, and that keeps it white. So the taste is a lot more delicate. And yeah, you get it all over the restaurants and everywhere. And I absolutely love it. It's not cheap, but when I can find it, I will buy it. Typically it's from Peru when you get it here, but it's such a, oh my gosh, it's just, and for me, it's a way to stay connected to my roots. And when I get homesick, I cook German food.
Yeah, I cook recipes for my grandma. I understand that.
I know.
But you were talking in the video, you were talking about how like you need to cook the asparagus like that day or the next day when you get it from the store. You can actually get asparagus to last for a month if you store it properly.
Okay,
so
That's
Um,
the thing.
yeah, it's a good trick that I know. So you break off the woody end from
Mhm.
the soft end, the not woody end, and then you put them in a glass jar. There's some parsley here. This will also last about 6 weeks, but you put it in a glass jar. And then make sure it's filtered water, like water you would drink, not
Right.
your tap water that has too much chlorine in it. Mine has too much chlorine in it,
Yeah, olive.
and it will stay fresh for about a month in the refrigerator.
Oh,
And then about every 10 days, I just cut off a little bit of the end and it opens up the vascular system of the plant again. So it just keeps refreshing. So asparagus and broccoli last like that when you store it in the refrigerator. And then parsley and cilantro will last for over that. So like 6 to 8 weeks in the refrigerator. So this is a month old right now.
amazing. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I did something similar because I have a very tall plastic bowl, if you will. I use that for making whipped cream because I don't buy whipped cream in the store. I whip my own. But this is one from Germany, and it's perfect because you can stand the asparagus upright, the bunches of asparagus.
Mhm.
And then I was educated because people like to educate me in my videos and in the comments that you do that with the green asparagus, but not with the white asparagus. You wrap that into a wet towel.
Mhm.
So, but I did it the same way. I didn't cut off the woody ends. I just got it from the store, put it in the container, and put it in the refrigerator because I thought to me that made a lot of sense. But maybe I'll try out different methods and see if it affects asparagus differently. And then
Yeah.
I'll circle back to you and let you know. The white,
It's just a 1/4 inch of the bottom that you cut off and it breaks off or it refreshes the end like you would for flowers, but it
right,
makes
because there's too much
it makes it
air in
separate.
it or something, right? And
Yeah, it
then
calluses over is
yeah,
the
yeah.
technical term for that. But I'm not normally technical about
But
things.
sometimes it makes a huge difference being accurate and technical. Yeah.
Yeah, but whenever I like get parsley or cilantro out to make it for a meal, then I just like, oh, it's probably time I need to just chop off the end of that, and then
Yeah,
I
yeah.
put it
And
back
yeah,
in the
starting to get a
refrigerator.
little limp.
Yeah, yeah, but it does matter the water that you put into the glass. So if you're using
That's really good.
chlorinated water, it will kill the plant. So,
I tell people too when they're making sourdough starter from scratch. I have a family generation old method that is very different from your feeding and discard method that most people use. But yeah, some people get mold or it doesn't ever really get started and doesn't get bubbly. And water can be one of the things. If you use tap water and it's highly chlorinated, the chlorine is in there for a reason to kill
mhm,
bad bacteria. So you're trying to grow the good bacteria, but chlorine doesn't differentiate between good and bad. It just kills everything. And
mhm.
oftentimes I recommend that people try something filtered water or distilled water um, or water from the store just to get their sourdough starter going.
I can't wait. Really, I can't wait until we move and get settled after the summer and I can start my sourdough journey over again using your methods because I actually have my pandemic sourdough starter that
Yeah.
I had in the freezer because we got so tired of feeding it all the time and trying to figure out what to do with the discharge all the time. And I found out over the last couple of years that I'm diabetic. And so then I stopped making it because I wanted to eat it all the time and I needed to control things for a while. But
Right.
now I'm really excited about hearing your tips on making like English muffins and hamburger buns that I could like make a few and then put them in the freezer and not want to eat, all of them at a
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So tell us all of your sourdough tips. And I love that you have a book out and a course to teach us all of these things.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a rabbit hole here for me.
Yep, just go.
I'll try to be reasonable about my rabbit hole, okay? Make it not too deep of one. But basically, what I do, and if you want more information, because sometimes, I mean, I'm so immersed in this method, I can do all of this. I can talk about this stuff in my sleep. Probably I do. And I can make a sourdough starter in my sleep. I can bake my bread in my sleep. So I'm really familiar with my methods and everything. And for a lot of people, it isn't. And then they have a lot of questions. So, what I recommend people do is if you have questions, there's the link to the YouTube channel, and I have a playlist, and you can go to the playlist. You can also, I have a course, and we'll talk about at the end of the video a little bit more. And I have the book, but I'm just going to give you like a bird's eye overview of how I make it. What I do is basically I jump start my sourdough starter, and I do that with cultured buttermilk and
Mm.
flour. And this is one of the questions I get all the time. Can I use powdered buttermilk? I don't think so, because you need the life active cultures. If you buy a jar in the store or like a carton, it will say life active cultures. That's what you need. Also, same question. Can I use the one that you make from milk and vinegar? That's curdled, not cultured. So that won't work. You need the life active cultures, because we're using those cultures to jumpstart our sourdough starter. And I mix that up. And what's different about my method is that you don't need to measure anything. There is no timeline. There is no complicated instructions. I basically throw the two ingredients together, mix them up. And what I'm looking for is a thick pancake batter-like consistency. That's why I don't give you ratios. And sometimes people ask me, but if I need this much sourdough starter, how much? Well, just guesstimate, and you can always start it with a smaller amount and then add a little bit more of one or the other. And you put that in a jar, room temperature, warmish spot. Sourdough likes more than 72, maybe 72 to 76. But trust me, this kitchen here has no own heat source. And I have successfully made various sourdough starters in a cold kitchen. It gets really cold here at night, and these are single pane windows. In the winter in Northern California, it can get actually freezing. Then you stir it every day. If you forget one day, don't worry about it. Stir it the next day. And there's a lot of things that can happen. You have a microbial content in your environment, the wild yeasts in your kitchen. If your kitchen is overly sterile, you may not have that content of good bacteria that you need to cultivate your sourdough starter. So that can take a little bit longer, but it can go as quick as 4 or 5 days. I've had a lot of people say, after 5 days, I had a super happy, bubbly, pleasantly sour smelling starter. And so then you have your starter. It's young. It's not very robust. It is a little bit, it can be susceptible to mold. It can be a little weak to actually leaven an entire bread. So what I recommend then is, you actually want to bake a bread, yeah, go ahead and just add a pinch of commercial yeast to it. But then it's not a true, authentic sourdough. And I think, you know what? If I get a bread and it's still properly fermented, it still has the sourdough flavor and all the goodness from the sourdough, and a little commercial yeast is basically like 2 or 3 single very potent yeast strains, but they also naturally occur in the sourdough starter because it's a combination of yeasts and lactobacillic acids. Then once you have your sourdough starter, our family has always done this. We have packed the little bit of sourdough starter that we have left in the jar, or we make sure we have something left in the jar. We pack it with flour. And I have one video where I'm showing that with a fork, and I get comments where people say, oh my gosh, it's so dense. She's going to break that fork. Yes, you want it really dense, and then you want to pile some flour on top. I think where that may have originated from is because people have told me in the comments, oh, my grandmother used to always keep her sourdough starter little ball in her bag of flour. And that makes perfect sense, because 150 years ago, people did not discard anything.
Right. Yeah.
They did not have enough to throw stuff away.
Right.
And so, as you may have noticed, I have never, ever talked about discards here. I don't discard typically. And so then you pack it with flour, you keep in the refrigerator, put a lid on, because there's other things swirling around your refrigerator. You don't want that to contaminate your sourdough starter. And when you're ready to bake, so this is the only thing that's a little bit different. The night before, you take out your sourdough starter, you keep it on the counter, but you add some water to bring it back to that pancake batter-like consistency.
Right.
Let it sit overnight, and the next morning you have an active starter, because essentially you've drawn out the feeding of the flour and the water. You've separated them out, and now you add the water, and then that cycle continues. And then you keep some sourdough starter, add a bunch of flour. Now, if you bake every few days, not every single day, but every few days, you can also perfectly take a little bit of sourdough starter and put it in the fridge as it is, put a lid on, and then you bring it back to life by adding a little bit of water and flour. And that's essentially it. And then I have the same approach for my breads. I don't have the motivation to bake perfect Instagram worthy breads all the time. They need to be good. They taste good. And yeah, so I can talk about this forever, but
I just
so
love that.
that's essentially my method.
Like I swear we had 2 big gallons of starter going like
Yeah.
during the pandemic, and we were doing stuff with it. My kiddos were home and we were busy with it. But then like life started again and we couldn't be baking all the time. And it's like, what do you do with all this, extra? And
Yeah,
I finally
I
just
feel
got
like
it got
the
too much.
sourdough starter should work for you, not you the other way around. And I know people put their sourdough starter in sourdough hotels because they feed it every day and then they do something with it or have discards.
Mhm.
And when they travel or something happens, they got to keep it going. So then there's a sourdough hotel. And I believe that it should be the other way around. All the ferments,
Yeah,
by the way, can adapt to your schedule. You can train them. I have a
I love that.
𝐋𝐈𝐍𝐿𝐒, whatever you want to call it. I always call it 𝐋𝐈𝐍. I have a 𝐋𝐈R that works for me, not the other way around.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that because that's been something that's been, I mean, I can't eat bread every day and I can't eat
right.
bread products every day being diabetic. So being able to start bringing this back into our diet, like we do we mill our own grains and stuff. So it's better for us,
Right.
but still like it's something that I'm trying not to eat every day. And then you have all this, extra sourdough. Like, what are
It's
you
so
going
hard
to
to
do with
hear
it?
as a German because people joke that Germans eat bread with their bread.
Oh, yeah, yeah. We joke that one of my kiddos is a carbitarian, so they only eat carbs, but
Well, try the
it just
sourdough
works.
because I think the glycemic load is a little bit less on sourdough bread than on
Mhm.
yeast or baking soda bread or baking powder bread. And especially if you use whole grain, it also slows down the absorption of the starches. So you may
Yeah, I
want to
have
try that. Yeah.
definitely found that over the years
Mhm.
that I do way better with sourdough than anything else.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just when I bake it, I want to eat it all. So
Yeah.
when I start baking again, we are literally listing our house in 2 weeks. Like all my fun strawberry stuff is coming out of the cabinets this week. Like our house is in boxes. But when we do move and get things set up again, I can't wait to get started. But I do a lot of like meal prepping, like breakfast items and putting them in the freezer so I can pull
But
them back out for a busy
tell
day.
us about your strawberries because I think that's how it all started, right?
It is, yeah, strawberries is how it all started. It was technically blueberries that got this all started. But during the pandemic, there were so many moms that were scared to take their kids to the store
Mm,
or like trying to only leave the house once every 2 weeks. And I was seeing all these moms on mom groups. I'm an older mom, like my kids are grown, and I love being able to like answer questions to younger moms. And that's like a calling on my heart, I call it. But there was all these moms on this group, and Jordan Page's shelf cooking group is what I was on, and they were saying like they stopped buying produce because they didn't know how to wash it because the pandemic people were scared about washing boxes and stuff when they were bringing it in, and that they could only get like their blueberries to last 4 days. So then the next 14, 12, whatever that was. The rest of the time they didn't 10 days. Sorry. The rest of the 2 weeks, they didn't have any fresh produce at their house. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like my blueberries in my fridge right now are a month old. Like blueberries will last 6 to 8 weeks. What do you mean? And they were like, no, they only last like 3 days. And I'm like, no, like I grew up on a farm. This is what we do. And so it's kind of funny when my grandma would wash things. She used to put them in the butter containers, not
mhm.
in glass jars. So she was a canner, but you never knew what was in the refrigerator that was in those butter containers. But over the years, I had started removing all the plastic from our
Yeah.
kitchen. That's like a big thing on our heart that I wanted to do. And we had foster kids here, and they didn't know the names of like the different berries and produce items. And so I started putting stuff in mason jars into the refrigerator so I could open up the fridge and say, what color do you want? Which one do you want? And they knew the colors, but not the berry names. And through the process of washing them, which kills off the mold spores, 𝐂𝐻𝐿𝐼, Listeria, and other harmful pathogens that's on your produce, that technique that I kind of had worked on for like 20 years to do that. And then over the last like 7 years, when we started putting everything in glass, I realized that, raspberries and blackberries will last 2 to 3 weeks. Strawberries will last 3 weeks. Grapes will last 4 to 6 weeks, and then blueberries 6 to 8 weeks. So you can literally, I go to the grocery store once every 3 to 4 weeks, and we have zero food waste in our house,
Yeah.
which is just a huge, huge thing. And we're in the Seattle area, so probably pretty similar food costs to what you
Mhm.
have.
Yeah.
Like we're able to do $135 per person. It's just the two of us here at the house. So
Wow.
we're spending $270 a month on groceries,
Yeah.
and we have food security in our house. I really care about the ingredients that we're bringing into our home,
Yeah.
and just always being able to have that fresh produce that we can do stuff with is just so important. But I am also an author, and I have the Zero Waste Produce Guide that has 75 fruits and vegetables in it, A to Z, and how I keep it fresh for weeks. And there's over 40 different recipes and meal ideas in it also. So that is my book. We were kind of on the same book journey at the same time, which is kind of fun. So, um, but yeah, that's what I teach on my channel. If you're new to me, is I teach all of the produce tips, and I do all of my grocery hauls, and every 2 weeks I post all the meals that we're making. Even during this crazy season of our life, I'm still posting all the meals that we're making so people can get an idea of how to batch cook or how to
Right.
spread out their grocery budget a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah. And so I just want to chime in really fast with saving money. I don't know where you all live, but where we are, and let me show you this loaf of bread that I actually made right before recording this video would probably be around $10, maybe even a little bit more, because it's all organic. It's sourdough. It's properly fermented. It's not, because some bakeries add sourdough for flavor, but not for actual fermentation. So you're buying technically a sourdough product, which has not gone through the typically 8
Process.
hours of real fermentation. So this bread, because I'm using fancy grains, ancient grains, is probably $3 at the most. I haven't priced it out, but it's very, very affordable. And it's so much better. You know exactly what's in it. And you have the fun of making it. You can always add different things. You can add seeds to it. You can totally make it your own. And there's nothing better than to smell fresh baked bread.
Smell.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you.
It's just so interesting when you start stocking those ingredients and learning like the basic skills
Yeah.
in the kitchen, that it's kind of lost. Like a lot of the things that I learned are from my grandma. My mom and my dad were loggers. And so my mom was never in the kitchen. She was in the garden, but never in the kitchen. And we grew up in a multi-generational house where my grandma was always in the kitchen. And it's just interesting, like those things that I naturally grew up knowing, and not even really thinking about it being a thing,
Right.
like stretching out grocery budgets, or
Yeah.
making it last a little bit longer, or saving for the rainy day. Those kind of things are kind of a skill that's lost in my generation, and definitely the millennials, like
Also, I feel like
that.
I grew up with a lot of that knowledge. And because I was watching my grandparents, and my mom was a bit of a, she likes to cook and she did a lot of things in the home. And when I was a kid, we did not have a lot of money. We actually had very little money. But I feel like we almost skipped a generation, because, especially in this country, women were told that cooking and homemaking is drudgery, it's hard, it's no fun. And that is when the industry came in and said, oh, you can buy stuff from a can or Hamburger Helper or whatever have you. And so I feel like there's a generation that wasn't taught how to do things. And I find it really fascinating to think that in previous generations, the older generation would teach the younger generation how to do things. And now I feel like there is a younger generation that is growing up and interested in all these practices and learning about sourdough and preserving food and doing all these things at home. And they're teaching an older generation how to do these things. And that's really unheard of.
It is, but thank goodness for things like YouTube, where we are
Right?
being able to learn new skills and pass them on through the generations, whichever way that's going. But
Yeah, it's not just in your
they're
own village
so neat.
where you're passing your knowledge. You can, and I love sharing what I know. And I love when I get emails or comments from people, especially in emails, they send me photos of their sourdough breads. I'm like, that warms my heart. And even if I don't always have the time to respond to all of them, I read them and I love them. And it just, I mean, yes, I do this full time, but that's really what feeds my soul, to know that somebody feels successful and has fun making their, sourdough breads or whatever it is in the kitchen. Yeah.
We get all the on Instagram. Most of my following is on Instagram, but we get people with their produce spreads of, everything they washed that day. And that's
Right.
kind of fun too, to, see, they're encouraged to buy more produce and have more produce in their family. And so we
Yeah,
get those. It's kind of fun, but I try really hard. I read every single comment, and if there's a heart on it, I've done it, and we try to send out all the links. But just trying to answer questions, or I even build my content. If I happen to mention a recipe and somebody wants to know the recipe more, I probably don't have it written down. I'm really bad about, I'm going to use a little bit of this and a little bit of that and make something.
Sure.
And so then I try to go back. Yeah. Try to go back in and figure out, okay, well, this is the actual recipe. And then we normally will put it on the blog after people are asking about it. It's like our sloppy Joe recipe is one of them that I will make and batch cook and put in the freezer. So we have it all the time. And I'm loading it with vegetables and stuff.
Nice.
Mostly before we were trying to stretch the grocery budget out, it was because my husband doesn't necessarily eat vegetables on the side. So I sneak them into everything. And I did that with my kids. Yeah. And my grandma, when Mike's grandma lived with us for her last chapter here, she was here for a year. I realized that she didn't eat any vegetables at all, at all. So she was completely different than my grandparents when it came to that. And so it was kind of fun learning all those, skills to sneak it into somebody's diet that was 95. I'm good about sneaking it into my husband's diet or kids' diets, but somebody that actually is what is that little green dot in there, So, but
trying to sneak vegetables into my food.
Yeah, but with the sloppy joes, it's kind of funny. I was just kind of cleaning out the fridge one day, trying to use up something that we had in there. And you can kind of use tomato-based kind of things any way you want to. And I had no, it wasn't marinara. I had some pizza sauce that I had left over that I had canned that was in the refrigerator that I wanted to use. And I added that to my sloppy joes, and it made it taste so flavorful, and it just really boosted up all the flavor in it. So now that's became my go-to, is adding the pizza sauce to the sloppy joe mix. So
why not? Yeah, that's how
why not? Yeah.
Are started. And I mean, that's how often I cook. I just open the refrigerator. We have French door. What's in there, what needs to be used. And then one time I had radicchio, which is not a very common vegetable, if you will.
Right.
It's more like a lettuce.
Yeah.
And it is a little bit bitter. That's why a lot of people don't like it, but bitter is actually really healthy. And I thought, what am I going to do? And especially in Chinese food, they talk about the 5 flavors. And we typically have sweet and salty and maybe sour in the Western culture. Right. So I added a little bit of balsamic vinegar to it, and the sweetness from the balsamic vinegar and the fermentedness, the slight umami, just totally elevated the whole thing. And then some goat cheese. And, oh my gosh. And that as a pasta sauce, I mean, that was amazing. And I just basically cooked that up on the fly. And sometimes that's really how new recipes are started.
Right. What can you use that? Again, an old skill that is kind of lost, because people think that they need to follow an exact recipe on things, unless it's baking. And then sometimes you have to.
Well, I feel like with baking, you can't influence it. Once it's in the oven, it's done, right?
Yeah.
So you do need to follow recipes, and I do myself. But I also, with the bread, I kind of have a idea and a good feel for what the dough should feel like. And because I'm so intimately involved with the dough and the bread making. But with cooking, it's you add a little bit more of this, or maybe you need a little bit of lemon or a little bit more salt, or maybe we can try some other sauce on it. And so that's really fun, because it's super creative and you can still influence it while it's cooking. And you can't do that with baking so much.
Right. I always laugh because, I'm a little OCD. So I'm always tasting stuff. I go through 15 spoons when I'm making a recipe because I taste it once and I throw it in the sink. My husband will be washing the dishes later and he's like, why do we have all this silverware? And I'm like, oh, it's just me. But
I have fun. So yeah, but back to the comments. So that's actually a good segue for my course, because we were talking earlier before this video about how this course was started. And it wasn't like I sat there and I thought I'm going to make a sourdough course. But in my videos on YouTube, people have so many questions. And as I was saying earlier, I only have so many hours in a day. And even if I had an assistant answer some of the questions, some are so specific for the sourdough, and you really need knowledge about the sourdough, that I thought, you know what, I need to go dive a little bit deeper into the methods and the intricacies. And that's how my sourdough course started. And I also have a private Facebook group for the sourdough course, because sometimes people will tell me, oh, I have this, my sourdough starter looks like this and that. Has it gone bad? And it's really without a better description or a photo. And you can't leave a photo on
right, on YouTube.
comments. Mm-hmm. So in the private Facebook group, though, that you will get when you buy the course, you can post videos and you can post photos, and then I can give people a little bit more personal attention and really help them with their breads. And sometimes we have a little bit back and forth. And also you get the other people to chime in and everybody learns, which is so fun, this community of everybody helping each other and learning from each other. And that's, I've taught a lot, but I've learned so much myself. It's really fun. I absolutely love it. So yeah.
I love Facebook groups for that. Like,
yeah.
If you can't personally answer that question right that second, like there might be somebody online that can answer for you. And as long as the answer is correct, then, then I go in and heart it, if it's the correct answer. But, just that everybody trying to work together and help answer questions and sharing their journeys is it's so neat to me. Yeah. So if you're just meeting me, my name is Amy Cross, and I am the Cross Legacy everywhere on social media. YouTube and Instagram are my main two places. And then I have my Zero Waste Produce Guide, which we will link in the description. And there's a discount code for that if you buy it from my website. It's also on Amazon if you're looking. And then I think we have some special information from Anja too.
Yeah, so I'm Anja Eckert. I'm Our Gabled Home across all the platforms. I'm mostly on YouTube, where you can see my face, or on my blog. And I do have the sourdough course. And for the audience listeners of this video, I also have a 15% discount on the course. The link is in the description below, and you can find all the other links for where you can find me.
So make sure that you're following both of us and all of our platforms, and know that we have a heart to try to teach other people how to save money on groceries and bring some of those traditional skills back to your kitchen.
I know you're relentless in teaching people how to save money on groceries and how to preserve their produce for eternity.
I just want to relieve some of that stress on mom's shoulders. So it seems like
once you
food waste
have
is a
something
huge
that
one.
works for you, you want to share it with the world, right? I mean, that's what we are. Yeah.
And I am so looking forward to this fall after we get settled. Like, I am joining that course. I will be in your Facebook groups, which will be fun.
Yeah.
And you can see my restarting this journey as a diabetic doing this.
I'll be following it.
I'll be picking up on you. Please do. So I have a goal. So September.
No, I'm just kidding. No, that's a little bit too much.
So thank you for doing this collab with me, and I look forward to talking to you in the future.
So fun. The pleasure was absolutely mine. I love how we connected here, and I feel like we could have talked for another few hours. Maybe we need to do another one. So yeah, if anybody has a question for us or would like us to do another video like this on a slightly different topic, I would love it. Amy, what do you think?
Yeah. As soon as we move and we have a new kitchen. Right. Our new kitchen, which is going to be interesting, has us, if we get the house, so we put the offer on, so we'll see. But the stove is original to the house from the 1940s.
Oh my God. So, is it a Wedgwood or
it's no, it's not a Wedgwood. I can't remember the name of it.
There's a few others. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember the name of it, but
Asparagus.
I'm trying not to get too excited yet because we don't well, the offer
Yeah.
isn't accepted yet, but we'll see. So follow my
Well,
journey as
cross
we
our
are.
fingers for you. Yes, we'll cross our fingers for you that you get your offer accepted.
Yes, yes, but we're really excited about moving into an old home and
It's so
refinishing
fun.
it. So
Yeah, I
that'd be
love it.
very cool.
I love it.
So, anyways, all right, let's close this out. Have a good day and make sure that you're following us on both of our channels, The 𝐂𝐎𝐍𝐍𝐄𝐂𝐓 and Our Gabled Home.
Yeah, thank you.